Hi everyone, it's Shari Carroll for SimonsandStamp.com, and I have for you today a patriotic card using some Tim Holtz dies and Idea-ology. So the dies I'm starting off with are going to create my flag, so to speak. So I'm just kind of putting together some dies and papers to create a flag. So this is the Harlequin die, and it cuts 12-inch paper. So I have cut some paper already. It is more of a beige tone or just a really light kind of printed script tone, and I've cut those up to fit on my card. These will represent the stripes on my flag, so it's fun to use a die in a whole different way. Rather than using a bunch of stars for my flag, I'm using the heartfelt die, and this is the Biggs die, and I've cut a piece of corrugated from the heart that's on the left, and the corrugated cuts really well on these dies. It doesn't get smashed, so it holds its texture perfectly. I've chosen a couple papers for this project, and the blue piece comes from the Dapper collection from the Tim Holtz papers, and then the red piece comes from Tim's Yuletide collection. I've started off with the red piece cut in a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I was pleasantly surprised when I first laid out my pieces that they fit perfectly top to bottom, or bottom to top as I'm putting them down now. So what I like to do is to go ahead and dry fit everything before I adhere it down, just to make sure everything will fit. But this is one of those times when everything really works out well. So to adhere everything down, I'll be using my Elizabeth Crafts, it's a 1/4-inch tape, and so I just kind of pull off about the amount that I need, and it's fitting just perfectly in this Harlequin pattern. And just go ahead and press that down, and then you can tear off at the end. I'll be adding the sticky tape to both of the Harlequin patterns on this, and then once I'm done I can go ahead and peel off the backing and just go ahead and place it onto the card. So I want to make sure that I get everything straight, or at least close to straight. This is kind of a tattered or distressed kind of looking Harlequin, so it's not perfect, which I really like. But once you have your placement, go ahead and just press everything down. I will be popping these pieces up, so I have glued them down to some white cardstock, and then I trimmed around the edges just to give it a little more firmness. I'll also be putting this onto a top folding Desert Storm card, and I've trimmed down that front panel just to give myself an even border around the sides. I'll be distressing the edges of the panel just a little bit, so I have my walnut stain ink and my ink blending tool, and I'm just going to run that blending tool just around those edges just to darken it up a bit, and it'll give it a little bit more definition against that Desert Storm note card. And I'll go around the sides really well to cover that white paper edge. I've run this through my sewing machine, and I have sewn the centers of all those Harlequins. I wanted to show you how you can pull your strings out. So you just pull that back string and you get a little loop, and if you pull that, then that pulls the front string all the way through to the back. So that way you can hide all your loose ends. So once I have all my strings to the back side, I'm just going to use some of that Elizabeth Crafts tape and just press that down on there, and then I can go ahead and clip off the tails of the threads. This will keep everything secure from unraveling. The next thing I want to do is to add a little bit of texture to my heart. So I have my heavy gesso and also my palette knife, and I'm just grabbing a little bit of that gesso and I'm just rubbing it on. In some areas I'll rub it in kind of heavy, and then other areas just light to catch the tops of that corrugated. Once you have one side, you can go ahead and flip that over, and then I'll just continue on. Get my fingers around here so I don't mess anything up. Get another grip, and then I can just add just a little bit more to that left side. At this point, I've done a little bit of assembly on my piece here, and this blue piece represents the uniform like of a soldier, so I've added a few of these ring fasteners so I can connect the heart to the uniform, and I've used a swivel clasp to connect those two together with a couple jump rings, and then down at the bottom is the token that says Brave. I've used some pop dots to pop that heart up off that piece, and I've also secured my stars in place with my multi-matte medium, and I've just chosen a few different stars to put on the piece. I've also used some fun foam on the back of this to give this a little bit dimension to sit up off the flag part, and I'll be using my Elizabeth Crafts tape for this as well, and I've just go ahead and tear off some pieces and put it on the back of that fun foam. And then once I'm at the end, I can go ahead and tear off a little piece. I usually put the leftover in the center. So once I have that completely covered, I can go ahead and peel off the backing. And at this point, I want to make sure that I align this really well. And I'm also leaving just slightly a little border on the back where the red piece is. And then once I'm happy with that placement, I can go ahead and press that down. I've also used some fun foam on the back of this piece, and I've covered it with some of that Elizabeth Crafts tape as well. And at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and start peeling off all the backing, and then I can go ahead and align this onto my top folding Desert Storm card. And once I have my alignment, I can go ahead and press this down. One last thing I want to add to my card is the word remember, and that comes from the Tim Holtz Seasonal Chit Chat. I've backed that onto a piece of Desert Storm cardstock and added a little bit of foam square to the right side, and then I'll be securing this onto the card with my multi-matte medium because there's a little bit of step off. So I want it to sit flat on the blue piece, but yet foam dotted off the backing flag. So once I have that all set up, I can press that down. Here's a look at my finished card. It has so much symbolic meaning to it, and I really liked how everything turned out. Everything fit just perfectly. One of those surprising factors when you're doing card making. So all the metal, I have not distressed or changed any of that. I've just left everything just clean and pristine, and those stars really pop off that heart. And it's just really a nice piece for Memorial Day. I hope I've given you some inspiration on using your dies together with some of the ideology and to create something fresh and different, putting things together to create a card with meaning. I have listed all the supplies I've used for this card. You can check the description down below. There's also a link to our blog post that has all the still shots of this card. Be sure to visit us on all of our social media outlets. On Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Snapchat, Periscope, and also here on YouTube. And as always, thanks for watching.